Wednesday, October 30th, 2013.
It's extremely torrential rainfall that has trained across the area and may have brought as much as 15 inches of rain.
KXAN forecasts what would become one of the most powerful flooding events in Central Texas history.
No, it's flooded all the way around.
By nightfall, Austin Fire's 911 center began fielding the first of more than 660 emergency calls over the next day.
It might be a long time before anybody gets there.
Around 10 p.m., crews begin swift water rescues.
We walked out, but barely. It was up to my chest. The dogs swam.
Whatever you have to do
with our dogs.
Leave them. Multiple people might die on that street if you don't get out of the property.
Just the start of a long, hectic night into the morning of October 31st.
We're going to get there as quick as we can. Stay as high as you can.
We're standing in the back of a pickup truck, and we're going to die if somebody doesn't come and get us.
By 3 a.m., believing the rain had eased, managers cut back the number of 911 operators. But the water kept rising.
And 911 calls hit their peak soon after that as staffing at the call center was still scaled down. Extra dispatchers eventually arrived hours later at 7 in the morning.
And we spoke to people who say they called 911 and had to wait getting a recorded message.
KXAN investigator Robert Maxwell joins us live from Onion Creek, the area hardest hit. Robert, a lot of people wondering now if the city's call center is actually prepared for an emergency like this.
And that's what we wanted to find out. Remember the toll here. 5 people lost their lives in Austin Travis County. And while some streets in this area have shown signs of recovery, others like this one are pretty much dead, except for the wind through the trees here. Take a look at this home here, long since abandoned. You may wonder, like we were, did a 911 call come from this house? Well, we listened to scores of 911 calls routed through the Austin Fire Department, handling the majority of water rescues. In the recordings you're about to hear, the operators answering those calls admit they were overwhelmed.
So are you outside now and you're walking?
No, we're inside the house still.
Austin 911, do you need police, fire, or EMS?
Hundreds of calls poured into 911.
We're trying to get a boat down there. If you can walk to safety, I recommend you do that.
Okay.
Quickly overtaking the Austin Fire Department call takers who were on duty at the peak of the flooding.
We're just overwhelmed right now. We're trying to get to everybody, okay?
Adding to their stress, the panic in some callers' voices.
Ma'am, how high is the water in your house?
Oh my God! Oh my God! It's to my front door!
Ma'am? Hello, ma'am?
It's still light again!
Can you swim?
Yes, I can swim! It's to my door! I want to drive! No, I don't want to!
Ma'am, you're not going to die.
Fire department records show between 11 p.m. October 30th through noon the next day, call takers fielded 533 calls from trapped or frightened homeowners. An average October Wednesday overnight, the fire department might get a tenth that.
The fence was already down.
One of those callers was Sophia Loera.
It didn't feel like the water was stopping. It felt like it just kept going up.
She considered herself one of the lucky ones to get through to 911, but it would take several tries dialing.
And how many people are in your house so I can tell them? 2 people, 2 dogs.
Loera is an Austin police officer, but that morning was just another homeowner desperate for a way out with no idea how high the water would get.
I didn't know when we were going to be helped.
The call taker could only tell Loera, like so many others, to get to higher ground.
So at that point, we decided to go ahead and try to tread through the water.
Many who remained trapped by the water had to wait for help from 911. Call takers transferred at least 250 callers to a recording.
You have reached the Austin Fire Department.
Some listened to that message over and over without getting immediate help.
Please hold for the next available call taker.
For a long minute or two.
Do not hang up.
One caller waited as long as 10 minutes.
Ma'am, I need to get to the fire department.
Yes?
Stay on the line, please.
To the fire department. You have reached the Austin Fire Department. Do not hang up.
You really need his help. He'd be dead by now.
John Sabatz, getting no help from Austin, even reached out to other agencies for assistance.
We're on the phone with my stepmother who lives in Georgetown, who was talking to the Williamson County 911 because we couldn't get through to the Austin 911. So we were doing a backdoor relay, and they were telling her to tell us to get out of the top of the roof.
So why were callers getting a recording? AFD records show about 3 a.m. Call center managers scaled back extra staff, believing the heaviest rain had ended. By 5:30 a.m. on the 31st, with wide-scale flooding underway, AFD sent out a page for more call takers. It would double staffing to at least 6 by 7 a.m., but that would be a full hour after the call volume had peaked. Should the need ever arise, AFD's call center has 12 call taker stations. So the morning of the floods, with 6 call takers and 3 dispatchers working, there were a few empty seats. All the while, flooded homeowners had to wait on hold, hoping the floodwaters wouldn't get any higher.
Somebody has got to answer the phone. If you're going into a queue, listening to a recording saying don't hang up, you're not going to be a happy citizen.
Mike Levy with the city's Public Safety Commission says 911 response times are a growing concern in Austin, and not just during a major disaster.
The city has other priorities. Public safety, the human condition, human life is not on that list.
And for 911 callers whose safety was the priority the morning Onion Creek flooded.
It's already, to our back porch to the top. Like, you can't see the tires on our car or anything.
Waiting on hold and then being told they'd have to wait for rescue.
There's no path around your house that you can walk to a higher ground.
No, it's flooded all the way around.
Was the last thing many wanted to hear.
Okay. Be aware, we have rescues going around all over the city. It's going to be it might be a long time before anybody gets there.
Okay.
Now, we asked 911 call taker Commander Julie O'Brien whether call takers at the 911 call center are taught to stay on the line with callers in crisis situations. She told us, in general circumstances, under a normal day, the short answer is yes.
Well, what about the really busy times like the flood we had last year? What happens to that massive amount of callers being transferred sometimes to, like we saw, a recording?
Right. We saw some of this and heard some of this when we listened to the 911 recordings we got. What's supposed to happen is that callers are supposed to be transferred as soon as possible, of course, to the AFD. But what's happened to the call taker station? The call taker has given safety information to the caller. Get to higher ground was something we heard quite a bit. And then she's also at the same time typing in a message right to AFD, so they'll have an address to go to. It's called computer-aided dispatch. That is what's supposed to happen, Robert and Shannon. But certainly we'll find out when the city's own report comes out in a few weeks whether that protocol was followed. We're live in Onion Creek. Robert Maxwell, KXAN, investigates.
Really important story, Robert. Thanks. Well, when we asked Austin emergency officials about their standard protocol for staying on the line, they declined talking about it, citing security reasons. The city manager's office has also told several others we contacted not to give any interviews until the city's after action report comes out. That's later next month.
Austin's emergency response to a major disaster.
Ma'am, we've got several people in the area. We've got over 100 people trapped in that neighborhood.
An ongoing KXAN investigation reveals where 911 funding fell for police before the city's deadly flood.
And whether it was during that tragic night or any normal day, the 911 call center has been under some strain and starving for more money to hire some new frontline staff. Your safety in emergencies mixed up in a political fight between city leaders for 2 years.
Austin 911, do you need police, fire, or EMS?
Showing us the sprawling 911 center she oversees, Austin Police Commander Julie O'Brien is concerned a dozen positions remain unfilled.
What's the biggest challenge week to week when you come down here that you see?
Well, staffing with making sure that you have the people that you need to cover the hours where you expect to see call load increase.
Those call load increases, call center managers say they're commonplace. Whether it's the daily rush hour on icy roadways, a brush fire where multiple people call 911, or October's Onion Creek flood. That morning, during the most critical 3 hours, more than half of the 1,100-plus emergency calls were put on hold, longer than the 10-second goal. More than 130 callers listened to a recording for more than a minute.
Please hold for the next available call taker. Do not hang up.
Even without October's record-breaking rainstorm. Records show Austin's 911 response problem is getting serious. During the summer of 2012, nearly 5,700 calls were put on hold. Last year, it shot up to more than 20,000.
You had last year 20,000 callers on hold for a period of time.
Who's responsible for that?
Well, that's certainly not a good thing to have 20,000 callers on hold, but I will draw attention to the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of other phone calls where it was answered in under 10 seconds. We're not satisfied with those kinds of numbers, and it's something you always try and work with.
KXAN found who was responsible, obtaining this internal email revealing a cost-cutting plan, a staffing initiative last year aimed at lowering the 911 answer rate or service level in order to be more fiscally responsible. That means fewer people answering calls and extended 911 hold times. Commander O'Brien says she can only advocate her staff's needs to her bosses at Austin Police.
We did have requests from communications for call takers and for dispatchers. The prioritization did not include placing the communications personnel at the top of the list.
As far as priorities go, the approved city budget cut $70,000 from emergency communications. So why is Austin 911, a frontline life-saving division, not getting the money it needs to keep up with the growing city? The answer, it appears, resides here at Austin City Hall. The only city council member to speak about it says last year she doesn't recall any real budget talk on 911.
Certainly, that would be something that our police chief and our assistant city managers and our city manager would have prioritized during the budget process.
Turns out they didn't, instead focusing on hiring new forensic technicians to reduce case backlogs.
Is it not time to put some more money back into 911, given that things are shifting so dramatically over there?
We are taking a very close look at our communications center this year, as we have in past years. We actually have added personnel in the management structure to our communications division here in the past couple of months. They're undergoing a evaluation of the staffing levels along with the operations from top to bottom.
And this really is timely. Assistant Chief Manley says that evaluation will be sent into APD chiefs in the next couple of weeks, Shannon, for this year's budget talks.
But Robert, it's not just the need for people and personnel like we saw in your story. There are equipment needs as well.
This is really the bottom line. You're not just talking about personnel. And so, as you can imagine, Chief Manley and other department heads say they can't rank where requests for things like 911 funding will be. They have to sift through all this, again, going into the fiscal year 2015 budget year. Well, here's the final report, 71 pages long. It was months in the making and a bid to correct years of problems at Austin 911, from a reliance on overtime to staff burnout. Now, this matters to you because this is the template for how our first responders in our growing area can get you help in the fastest way possible. With last week's flooding still front of mind, this review of 911 operations backs more ongoing training for emergency preparedness, things like dealing with unexpected spikes in call load. And there's already noticeable improvement. We told you through the early morning of last Friday's floods, the 911 center in Austin responded to nearly twice as many calls as normal. All but 5% were answered within 10 seconds. That's well within national standards and well above call takers' performance during the Halloween floods, when callers were left on hold listening to recordings after being transferred.
You have reached the Austin Fire Department.
Last Friday, overnight, police tell us 16 call takers were on duty. Compare that to last Halloween, when there were 15, but of those, 4 were people working a double. Now, this report also calls for more call takers, dispatchers, and support staff, and it's very similar to a draft version we told you about earlier in the year. And after our investigations and the publicity surrounding the 911 staff shortage in Austin, City Council members just approved 21 new 911 center staff in the fall budget. This evaluation also calls for more staff in each of the next 2 years. And there's a commitment to better pay training staff. Much more for you online in our Investigate section of KXAN.com. Robert Maxwell, KXAN Investigates.